It's Reality Check with Craig Price.
I'm an idiot.
4 minutes in and I'm already wrong.
I'm like a monkey. Hello, look at me. Craig, shut up. Hey, I need you guys to do these things.
You're like a beautiful mind. I'm more like Forrest Gump. So welcome to Reality Check with Craig Price. That's me, by the way. This week, Jill Butler of Monster PB&J joins me to talk food trucks. I hope you enjoyed the long 4th of July weekend, because in summer is a perfect time to talk with my guest today, since food trucks seem to be popping up everywhere. I don't know about where you live, but here in Houston, they're everywhere. And they're not just your old school roach coaches at construction sites. Here in Houston, they've opened up even I guess you'd call it a food truck trailer park. It's a designated area with about 8 food trucks. It's got tables and chairs, and you can sit and eat your meal. And now you have a nice, consistent location, so you don't have to go on a mad food truck search. And it's not just your quick meals to go. They have Vietnamese food trucks, cupcake trucks. Of course, being here in Texas, they have all kinds of Mexican food trucks. But they're food trucks that serve specialty items. Maybe it's a burrito truck. Maybe it's just a taco truck. You can really get top-notch food at these trucks. It's not just horrible slinged fast food. It's really good top-notch food. But the reason I wanted to bring Jill on the show is because owning a mobile business like a food truck comes with its own problems. You know, you got getting customers and growing your clientele. It can be a challenge if you're not at the same spot every day. So before we delve into the reality of owning a food truck, I just wanted to take a second and remind you that we're down the home stretch with only a handful of episodes to go before the big 100. That's 100 in Espanol. Episode 100 is just down the pike. I wanted you to be a part of it. And you can do that by calling 281-668-8948 and leaving a message. The best ones will be part of the 100th episode, and I hope you join in. And also, don't forget to sign up for the podcast newsletter at realitycheckpodcast.com so you can get reminders of who's on the show, upcoming guests, and maybe some extra goodies. Maybe. But enough about me. Let's get to the podcast and Jill Butler. Now, I love peanut butter and jelly as much as the next person, and I certainly understand and have had your PB&Js and understand why it's so good, but why did you decide on PB&J instead of falafels or hot dogs or
whatever?
Yeah.
Right, all the other food trucks that are out there. We decided on PB&J basically because I'm a vegan, and my partner in the business, whose name is Will, is a vegan as well, and we were looking for good vegan food truck type food. And there used to be a vegan food truck in Houston, but there weren't very many options really. And so we started kind of playing around with what would be a good food that's pretty quick to make and delicious and vegan, and decided that PB&J would be a good way to go.
I was going to say, is PB&J, because it's so simple and so easy to do, you're not cooking, you're not, even though you do grill the sandwiches and they're awesome, but it's not as complicated as like a sushi truck.
It's not as complicated, and we don't really come from a restaurant background, so keeping it simple was definitely something we were interested in. We also felt like, at least in Houston, there weren't a lot of family-friendly food trucks. That was a market that we felt...
A lot of stripper trucks going around? Or
I haven't seen any of those.
Yeah,
yet.
I haven't either. I don't think I would want to go to a stripper food truck.
No, just more, I think a lot of the food trucks here seem to serve more what I would call adult gourmet type cuisine, fancier foods. And if they're doing burgers, they do burgers with fancy cheeses and other
Thai food, which kids are scared of.
Thai food. And so, I think we felt like there was an opening in this market for a more family-friendly food truck, and we felt like, wow, PB&J, not only is it vegan and it can be fairly healthy, but it appeals to kids from young ages all the way up to, we get 80, 90-year-olds coming to the truck all the time. So it kind of appeals to a very wide range of people, which we really liked.
And my guest today is Jill Butler, owner of Monster PB&J. And you say you don't have a food background.
That's right.
So why did you do it?
Why food truck? I own a design business here in Houston, and one of the things that Will, my partner, and I both always look for are when we're designing things, we try to design what I call design with a capital D. So we look for ways to solve problems, and that's what I think design does at its very best. Is if you've got a problem, how do you solve it? So we're always looking for fun ways to come at different angles to solve problems. And one of the things that we started playing around with, like I said, was this vegan. Where could you get good vegan food? And it's Houston, and there's not always a lot of options. And we came up with the idea of a peanut butter and jelly food truck and thought, oh, that's great. And we looked at each other and said, do you want to work on a truck? No. Do you want to work on a truck? No. So we shelved the idea for a while, and it was just one of those, oh, that would be fun someday. But Will actually had a good friend who was managing a restaurant and desperate to get out, just needed to go. He was ready to be gone and looking for the next thing. And Will approached me and said, what do you think about having this friend of mine whose name's Sharif manage our food truck? He's got the experience and he's looking for something new. And so really probably the food truck wouldn't exist if Sharif hadn't said yes.
So it's an opportunity.
It was kind of a perfect convergence of I guess maybe sort of letting fate take over, and all of the things kind of came together at the right time, and so Monster PBJ was born.
Now, did Sharif help with some of the menu? Because, like I said, it's my wife who loves and hates Monster PB&J because about 3 years ago, she had the same idea. She saw the food trucks. And she goes, you know what? We should do but not being food people.
Sure.
She's not in the food industry. I'm not in the food industry. We did the same thing. We just kind of shelved it.
Oh, that would be fun.
And we don't know anybody that would ever, would be, hey, let's start a food truck with them. So she loves it. So it's a great idea and the concept is there. But did Sharif really help kind of gourmet some of it? Because it's not your mom's Wonder Bread PB&J.
Well, and we were definitely cognizant of that. We were very aware we didn't want it to be your mom's Wonder Bread PB&J, but we still wanted it to appeal to kids, because a lot of times kids, at least some of the kids I know, like the blander, plainer foods. And so we didn't really want it to be something that was too plain and simple without making it too fancy. So we were trying to find that balance. And Sharif did help a lot. We spent about a year getting ready before we actually served our first sandwich and sold our first sandwich. So in that year, we did a lot of testing. The concept changed.
It must have been horrible.
Yeah, well, I did probably put on a few pounds, which, it's not great. But
we have friends who started a cupcake store. And
that's a problem, too.
And she kind of cupcaked herself. So
sure.
It's like,
and all of her friends.
I can't imagine that you would lose weight.
So it wasn't. Yes, it wasn't terrible. But we it even started with, our concept was not Monster PBJ in the very beginning. We've incorporated under a different name because we were going for a more adult upscale feel, and then we kind of thought, we're trying to kind of fit this square peg in this round hole. Why don't we just make it a little more fun, make it a little more definitely family friendly. Let's hit the fun points. A big purple monster on the side of a truck, it's pretty fun looking thing driving down the road. And so we played around in that year with a lot of things like the branding. What does it look like? What are the graphics? And then also the menu. And we had tons of different ideas. We get a lot of suggestions, and as simple as it is, it took a long time for us to sort of boil it down to that simplicity and to really come up with our core menu.
So how do you start? You start with obviously the idea of, we're going to make sandwiches. We're going to make these great sandwiches. They're going to be vegan, specially oriented. If a vegan go there, everything on the menu is quote unquote healthy. It is peanut butter and jelly, so it's
right.
But you don't use the stuff right off the shelf that's full of sugar. You use the good stuff, and that's healthy.
We make our own. Yep, we make our own nut butter.
So, what is the process how do you pick a truck? I mean, how is it? I mean, I've seen so many, and in my mind, the first thing that pops into my head as a food truck is the roach coach, because that's I have construction across the street from my house. I see it all every day. It looks awful. Yours is very clean and very bright, and it doesn't look like it's a converted mobile home. So
that's good.
Like I said, it looks like a big food, it looks like a big food truck, but it looks like a very nice, well-built, clean one, unlike the grimy roach coaches. So how do you go about even selecting a truck at this point?
Well, and that is a good question. And kind of backing up a bit, one thing that was very important to us as well, since we are designers and come from the design world, is we did want everything to be designed and thought through. And so we did think hard about, what does the truck look like? What does it look like when you walk up? How do you order? What are the people wearing on the truck? What do people see when they walk up to the truck? What does it look like online? What does it look like, on Twitter? And so really trying to think through, what should our truck look like? And so going for a clean, modern looking, something that a mom would feel good about getting her kids for lunch or after school or taking her friends to, that was very important to us. And really, we didn't know how to select a truck. And so we did a lot of research. Thank goodness for the internet, because it's definitely helpful to see what other people are doing, and we definitely leaned on that resource. We found kind of the brand of truck that most food trucks or most people that run food trucks said was pretty good, and we just started looking around and, okay, where can we get a used Chevy Workhorse step van? And it ended up, we bought it in Indiana. So we actually flew Sharif to Indiana, and he drove it back down to Houston. So it was, and if we were going to do it over, we'd probably do it a little differently, of course, because of the things we've learned. But it was kind of, well, let's try it and see. We'll do the research we can, we'll do the best we can, and try to make the best decision and hope it works out.
Well, that will lead me to the first internet question, because I always post on Facebook, and Seth in New Jersey was wondering that was it supposed to be a truck business, or was it just a decision after looking at leases, and was it a personal choice to go food truck, or was it a business decision to go food truck?
Probably both, but I think so. Yeah, probably both. It was always going to be a food truck. We were not really interested in starting a restaurant. As far as like a brick and mortar actual store, that just seemed like a little more commitment and maybe a little more overhead than we were interested in. It seemed like a food truck was a pretty good way to do something that's a little different, get into a space that, at least in Houston, isn't quite so overcrowded. I know the food truck industry is quite competitive and full in other cities. Here it's not that way so much, so it seemed like there was a lot of opportunity for something a little different, something new. And so for us, we had always intended for it to be a food truck.
So you've got the truck. Now you have to figure out where you can go and where you can't go, because I don't even know the legalities or because it's Houston. We don't have like a business zone, and I don't know what kind of licensing is involved. So explain some of the process of how you picked your locations, because now you're at a semi-regular, or at least almost always regular locations at certain areas in town. But how did you find those locations in the first place, and how did you even understand that you could just kind of, hey, I can park at the museum?
Well, in Houston, and I understand that every city's a little different in the way they handle it, but in Houston, food trucks are not allowed to park on the street, at least not longer than an hour, which is how a lot of the construction trucks get away with it, because they pull up to a construction site, serve their workers, and then take off. So in Houston, we do have to have permission to park wherever we are. And it has to be off the street. So we need a parking lot, and we need to get a notarized letter from the owner of that property that says, yes, you are allowed to park here. You can use our restrooms. And, there are some regulations about all of that. So it was tough, because it's true. We did get the truck. The truck showed up wrapped and built, and we thought, okay, what now? Where do we go? How do we find the spot? And we really went back to, okay, who are we trying to serve? And since we really saw ourselves as trying to serve that family-friendly niche, we felt like the museums in the Museum District of Houston would probably be a pretty good sweet spot for us. And they have hosted food trucks before, so it wasn't like we were approaching and trying to talk somebody into something. They were familiar with the concept and had some success with bringing in visitors. So we felt like that would probably be a good spot for us. And so the first venue we contacted was actually the Menil Collection, and they agreed to let us park there. And we are there pretty much every weekend and a couple weekdays. So that's worked out really well.
So the first place, I was going to say, did you get any pushback from any of you don't have to name names, but did you get any pushback from any of these organizations that you you attempted to get locations?
We've had some people say no thanks.
Yeah.
And I get it because it takes up space, takes up parking, obviously, which in some parts of Houston can be a big deal. They can be a little loud because the generator, if we're running off a generator, can be, kind of noisy and a little disruptive if there are neighbors around. So yeah, we've had people say, we're not really interested. Most of the museums we've approached have been very open to it, and if they have room in their schedule, have pretty much found a spot for us. Some of them, because the museums are a pretty popular place, are pretty full, and so it can be hard sometimes to find a spot. They don't have room in their schedule at certain times. So yeah.
And so you find the spots. You run a business that is different than a regular restaurant where you are at different places every other day.
Right.
So how do you advertise? I mean, how do you get the word out besides just the patrons who go by the museum, which are often tourists who may not even be from Houston?
Right.
So how do you get that word out?
We found that Facebook and Twitter are really our best bets as far as that goes. That and being parked in another reason we like the museum district, those parts of town tend to be very pretty. And if we can, if we can get parked in a great location, we pick up a lot of foot traffic just from people driving by and saying, what is this? We'll have people park and say, who are you? And what is this big purple monster on the side of this truck? So just kind of being out there can be one way just to get eyeballs on the truck and get people to stop. Facebook and Twitter, a lot of people who frequent food trucks are used to looking at Facebook and Twitter to find out where they are.
So it's like a little underground community kind of almost.
It is, yeah, it is. And we get a lot of people, I've noticed, who will come to our truck and maybe blog about it or put up a post about it. We'll do that for multiple trucks. They're kind of like, maybe not food truck stalkers, but they're food truck fanatics or
truck
fans.
foodies.
Yeah, food truck foodies. There you go. And so they enjoy that. They like to go to all the different food trucks. And we get a lot of regular repeat customers who I see will come to us, and then they'll go to a different food truck and a different food truck, and they kind of make the rounds, which is nice. We've also found that trying to tap into again, that core audience, finding the right groups on Facebook and sponsoring, helping out certain groups gets us great advertising and great eyeballs. So one thing we do is once a week we post a dog who's up for adoption at a local shelter. And it's a way to get the dog a little exposure, get the rescue group a little exposure, hopefully, somebody who sees the dog will adopt it and give it a good home. So it's really a win-win-win. And we also have found that we get a lot of great exposure that way too. And we get people who really like dogs seem to like our food truck. We have found that. And so it's a good way for us to get in touch with that specific group of people.
Well, dogs notoriously love peanut butter.
They do, and some people come to the truck and buy their dogs sandwiches.
Yeah, you can get them a nice,
which is
PB
adorable.
No J.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So
my grandfather used to make those for our dog.
Yeah,
his dog all the time. So
people do stop by and do that, which is fun.
Now, did you find that it was difficult to create a community there? Was there a little tough going, or was it a fairly easy, since there's already like a pre-built food truck community online, you found it just a matter of just fitting in with the already existing community?
Yeah, in the beginning, it was a little slow going, which is typical, obviously, for just about any business. But I think because of the way that Facebook and Twitter work, which is so nice, you see what your friends are doing, and so it's kind of they tell two friends, and they tell two friends, and so it's such a word of mouth, viral kind of experience. It really is sort of amazing to see how it starts to grow exponentially, and once 6 people know about it, then they each tell 6 people, and then they, and it just gets bigger and bigger. And so we've definitely found that to be true.
And I imagine you have an advantage of catering and special events versus a brick and mortar.
Exactly, we do.
So do you look for special events and try to include yourself, or do people approach you, or a little bit of both?
A little bit of both. We get a lot of people who do approach us, and we love to do special events and would love to do more of them. It's always that balance of, do you give up your usual spot on a weekend? Do you go to this special event? So there is some, because we can't be in two places at once. We have one truck right now. And so it can be a difficult decision for us to weigh, all right, what's the best move for us? But we do get quite a few people who approach us for everything from birthday parties to corporate lunches to evening bar type events. So it's great.
Yeah, but I was like, will you like offer to do the adoption day at the rescue center or in that kind of nature, where it's not necessarily catering, because one's catering and one's a special event?
Exactly. We do a lot of that, and especially if there are groups that I feel like are sort of near and dear to our mission and our heart, we will definitely seek those out and make an offer to help out. And a lot of times they approach us. So yeah, definitely.
So you have all these advantages of having a mobile vehicle, but there are some distinct disadvantages.
There are.
And while this doesn't happen very often, we're having that issue yesterday and today.
Yeah.
Where there was, it's a vehicle. Like every vehicle, it needs routine maintenance. Unlike a restaurant where you just kind of block off an area and work on it and people can still come about the business, you have to actually shut down. How does that affect your planning because you have to plan for downtime much more than anyone else? Mm-hmm. So how do you incorporate that into your business plan and into your advertising plan?
Yeah, it's tough because the maintenance that's going on right now is we're having some generator trouble, and since we rely on our generator to basically power the truck, it's hard to survive without it. And it's not something that we can, in this case, we can plan for, because it is something that came up out of the blue. So it's like when you get in your car in the morning and it doesn't start, well, you've got to find another way to get wherever you need to get to. And the problem, obviously, with the food truck is there's really no plan B. We don't have a second truck. If the truck's not working, we can't sell. Yeah, there is nothing we can do about that, and it is very frustrating.
But do you plan that in your budget, your yearly budget, knowing that there's going to be unexpected downtime? Because a restaurant, you wouldn't have to, because usually it's catastrophic. There was a fire, and now we're not going to be open for 2 weeks.
Right.
But in your budgeting, do you plan, well, there may be up to X amount of days where we're going to be down? Is that something you think about in advance, or is it just...
We don't, because we're just probably not that sophisticated yet in terms of forecasting and budgeting. You know, maybe in a few years or so down the road when we have it together a little more and we have a feel for how often does this happen. It does happen. So we don't really plan for it in that way. What we try to do is let people know as far in advance as we can, because there are some people who make a plan. I'm going to go to Monster PBJ on Wednesday because I'm going to be in that part of town, and yay, it'll be great. And I understand it can be a big letdown when people are planning, especially if you've told your kids we're going to go do this special thing, and then you have to tell them.
They're really good, because I don't eat peanut butter and jelly at my house.
Right.
And so if I do, it's usually depression oriented. So this is more of a, hey, this is a fun.
Yeah, and so letting people down is obviously not fun and not something we want to do. So we try to tell people in advance as far as we can, and we try to make it a little fun if we can by posting little pictures of, we call our truck Moby not feeling well, or Moby being under the weather, and so we try to sort of let people down easy and still give them a little something to smile about. And most people understand that it is a truck and it's gonna break down.
So. One last thing before I let you go, because this is now you've got the situation where you can pretty much custom make your sandwich. Mm-hmm. Now you've done all these combinations and you've tested all these. Is there anything that's ever surprised you that people ask for that you don't have? Like, I know one thing that if I was 5 years old, I would want. Now I know how horrible and awful it is. But I don't see any Fluffernutter.
Fluffernutter.
You know, I can't get the Fluffernutter sandwich.
People do ask for Fluffernutter, and unfortunately, marshmallows are not vegetarian or vegan, so we keep them off the truck for that reason. They do make vegan marshmallows; they're just a little expensive, so it may be something that we do sometime.
I don't even know what goes into. I don't know what a marshmallow is even made of. I just figured some kind of chemicals and just
it's gelatin in there, and it's made from animal parts. But
well,
anyway,
I mean, I'm sure there's some. It's white, so maybe there's some dairy. That's just my stupidity going. Oh, white milk. It must be something in there. But I mean, I've never run into a mallow in the marsh.
Right.
So, so
it's not a native creature. But one person, we do get a lot of requests like, oh, I would love to have, cherries or a lot of things. I think because we're a PB&J food truck, people bring up, just like the Fluffernutter, this is what I liked when I was a kid. And oh, it's so nostalgic and I would love to have this again, which is always fun. One person, maybe the strangest request that we had to actually try out and track down was pickles, peanut butter and pickles. And the guy brought it up. A person wrote into our Facebook page and said, hey, this was a favorite treat of mine. I would love for you guys to offer it. And I like pickles just fine, but it did not sound appetizing to me. So I kind of said, thank you very much, and we'll be in touch kind of thing. And then the New York Times came out with an article that I guess that's right after that's quite a combination that's becoming popular in cafes and restaurants in New York.
Lamaze classes, I would assume.
I know everybody assumes, pregnant women. But so we decided, you know what? The fates are speaking to us to try this peanut butter and pickle thing. So I got everybody downstairs in our little test kitchen, and we went and bought pickles, and we bought sweet pickles and dill pickles, and we tried it. And people who are extremely picky eaters around here who did not want to try it, and I pretty much forced it, everybody was genuinely surprised at how good it was. It was so much better. I think our expectations were maybe so low.
It just sounds disgusting,
it does.
frankly.
I know it. I totally agree. But for me, it was a lesson in, okay, never say never, because this is really not so bad. And we put a little hot sauce on there, a little sriracha, and it was really quite tasty.
Well, you have Sharif, who is a cook, a chef,
right.
Someone who knows food.
Yes.
So it's not like you're completely combining ingredients that may not go together. I'm sure Sharif was like, no, this doesn't sound completely crazy.
Yeah, I think he may have been one of the biggest proponents of it, but everybody was a little on the fence about that one. Nobody was 100% sure, but it ended up being much better than
So now pickles a permanent option, or is it?
It's not yet.
Is it something you have like one jar that, because a jar will last a long time, so
Yeah,
do you have like one jar hidden
exactly.
away and it's a special ask for?
We don't right now. We have talked about it though, because it was good enough that for people that visit regularly and sometimes will ask, okay, I want to try something different. I want to try something a little new. It would be a fun thing to offer. Hey, try this. To be honest, we just haven't worked it into our workflow yet and kind of our ordering process and all that. But it may be something that we look to do, in the near future.
Well, it could be one of those fun off-the-menu offerings.
Exactly, like a secret.
There's always a
Yeah.
secret somewhere. Like I know that out
Yeah.
west, that like In-N-Out Burger, you can get all kinds of weird combinations that you would never know about.
If you know how to ask
If
for
you know
them.
how to
Yeah.
ask for it. So maybe just one jar. It's only a
secret
$2
club.
investment once a
I
week.
know.
Maybe that
and
might
like
be
you
something.
said, they last forever. So yeah, probably not a lot of kids going for the peanut butter and pickles, but it would be a fun. We're always looking for. Okay, we know kids love PB&J. How could we also appeal to the adults and offer some more complicated flavors and a few more different items? So it may be something.
And you're certainly open to suggestions.
Absolutely.
Great. I know
We love
people,
it.
Some people get real defensive. They defend their menus.
No,
and so-
not at all. I mean, we love it. We didn't have grape jam in the beginning. We just couldn't find a good local supplier, and we try to source all of our jams locally. And it's something that we got a lot of requests for, which I totally understand. It is a classic part of the PB&J. So we do have grape jam now. We just started offering it about a month or so ago, and so that's been good. So we're open to all kinds of suggestions. We love it.
And so you make most or if not all of the peanut butters.
We make all the nut
on-site,
butters,
or
yep.
not, but
On the
in
truck.
prep. So it's homemade. It's gourmet. It's fresh. It's not anything that you can just go to the Jiff, get a Jiff can
Yep.
of thing. So
No, and it's just ground nuts.
and you offer fruits. You've got the Monster, which is just they're not small pieces of bread.
They're not.
I mean, the reason why they call it Monster, because
That's right.
when I first ordered, I'm like, oh, it's going to be it'll be something, but it was like a 3-day meal for me. It was huge.
And the Monster's a triple decker.
Yes.
So it's a lot of sandwich.
And most importantly, if requested, you cut the edges off just like Mom used to
We
do.
will cut the crusts off. Absolutely.
So if you're in the Houston area or you're going to visit Houston, where can they find you on a regular basis?
Well, the best place is to look at our website, which is www.monsterpbj.com. We hang out. We're doing a 7-day-a-week schedule now when the truck's working, which it will be soon. So we're pretty much out every day, and we post our schedule at our website. And if you follow us on Facebook or Twitter, we post it there as well.
Well, this past weekend was your anniversary, so I want to congratulate you for 1 year.
1 year.
Anniversary, and congratulations. And, I'm getting hungry, so I'm going to go find something to eat around here.
Thank you so much.
That's our show for this week. Thanks again to Jill and Monster PB&J. I'm telling you, if you're in Houston, go find them, eat up. It's awesome. Don't forget, any comments, questions, or guest suggestions can be emailed to me, Craig, at Speaker Craig Price. We're also on Twitter at Reality Check Pod. And if you like the Facebook page, you'll never miss an episode. So until next week,